Even say that to America. He wouldn't even say that about America's enemies. He never would. That's why he shouldn't be a congressman. Green's reaction came to a New Republic story on AIPAC hiding its endorsement of fine following his controversial comments last week in which he dismissed a report about the starvation of Palestinians in Gaza, including children, as Muslim terror propaganda. Release the hostages, Fine wrote. Until then, starve away. Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I can only imagine how Florida's 6th district feels about their representative that they were told to vote for, openly calling for starving innocent people and children, Greene wrote. It's the most truthful and easiest thing to say that October 7th in Israel was horrific and all hostages must be returned. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis, and starvation happening in Gaza. So there you have Marjorie Taylor Greene calling it a genocide, which it absolutely is, and calling out big fat Randy Fine, who's been so objectionable, even AIPAC can't stomach it anymore. Not even AIPAC wants to be associated with the GOP rep anymore. That's the headline from New Republic. Has Florida Representative Randy Fine's shameless cheerleading for death? Governments now, finally, as they commit just the most heinous act of barbarism the world has seen in 100 years, starving hundreds of thousands of people to death, as well as setting up food distribution sites for people who they then shoot and bomb. Finally, people are speaking out against this. The Netherlands just put Israel on a list along with like Saudi Arabia and Yemen or something. It's the list of, countries that are a danger to the Netherlands. So the Netherlands just put them on the list. France and England both talking about recognizing a Palestinian state. And that would be sort of beautifully ironic, is if the outcome of Israel's just relentless crimes against humanity, the attempted genocide, if it was to, in fact, to achieve the seemingly impossible goal of establishing a legitimate Palestinian state, it would be something very beautiful about that. Let's go to clip number 17 here. This is an IDF whistleblower saying aid from 1,000 trucks was buried in pits or burned. And I'll read along. Let's watch. They say they openly admit there's a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza, though not mass hunger. You're breaking news about significant humanitarian aid being destroyed, thrown away, discarded. What's going on? Buried. It's being buried. IDF dug pits. He says, what's the story? They're sending trucks to Gaza. This isn't involving the hunger rights issue, the source says. The problem is how aid is distributed. Many don't receive the humanitarian aid, the humanitarian assistance. It's a strategic, moral, and political blow that's been hurting Israel's global standing. Well, that's the worst thing, isn't it? That's what an insider says. The trucks, 1,000 trucks in the past 2 months meant for Gaza carrying aid, tons of food and supplies, were destroyed. They were buried or burned by the army. Why didn't it enter Gaza? Why wasn't it allowed in? Who's supposed to bring it in? The mechanisms aren't working. The mechanisms aren't working. Say security officials. There's a total disconnect. It's not properly organized. Yeah, that's the problem. Everything, basically. We saw yesterday at the crossings, thousands of items mint for Gaza, waiting on the Palestinian. Yeah. So again, this is just ridiculous. It'll be buried soon. So apparently, IDF whistleblower says 1,000 trucks of aid were buried in pits. And they're like, well, the organization's just not there. Oh, because you kicked out all of the humanitarian people there. And this goes to what's happening in America as well, as one of the main forces who was actually helping the Palestinians was USAID. Another one was UNESCO. We just left UNESCO. And it's not a big surprise. I don't know how people don't get this. UNESCO feeds starving people, and Israel's trying to starve people. So we removed ourselves from UNESCO because our participation in UNESCO was hampering Israel's strategic goal of starving the Gazans into submission or forcing them to leave. Because we're Israel's slaves. We're all learning. I feel that too. Do you not also feel that for the Palestinians? They're innocent after all. The vast majority of them. And again, there's this bizarre irony of organizations, governments who have been fully supportive of Israel, finally, now that they're deliberately starving people to death, coming out and saying this is too much, when they have vehemently defended Israel's outrageous activity for the last year and a half. But I'll take it. Whatever. Fine. If this is a bridge too far, then that's the bridge too far. I just wish you would have developed a conscience a year and a half ago, and we could have prevented it from ever getting to this point. Now, the latest official numbers say there's 60,000 dead in Gaza. I have a hunch that it's a hell of a lot higher than that. But I did the math, and that comes out to about 90 people a day, which I guess makes sense. I mean, maybe in some of the early days when they were bombing like whole city blocks and stuff, you would have had a higher count. Nowadays, you're averaging like 40 to 50 deaths a day, which is still just absolutely astonishing and horrifying and just awful. And every day I wake up to headlines. It's like, Israel's killed 63 people since dawn. It's like, this is just wild. It's just wild how much death we've come to accept. And it just paints everything that they've said before this as absurd, where every time you'd point out, like, Israel established a safe corridor and then bombed the corridor. Isn't that evil? And people would go, bah, well, it's war. What are you going to do? Yeah, it's war. Gee, what are you going to do? Not kill all the civilians? It's war, though. But it's war. And these things happen in war, and it's tragic. And Israel does everything it can to avoid this outcome. But it's war, and it's just October 7th's fault all along. Is this war? I mean, are we seeing any images like what we see out of Israel? Are we seeing them from Ukraine? Are we seeing them from China or the Thailand conflict, or not Taiwan, but the Thailand conflict going on? Did we see that in Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere else America has waged war? Why are we seeing it now? Since when is deliberately starving a population a part of war? Like, it's just gotten to the point that they just can't keep it up anymore. They can't keep the lies sustainable. It just doesn't work. And part of me is like, is this all just, it's kind of been happening a lot recently, and maybe this is just the sort of abused dog aspect of, being under the thumb of the globalists so long, is that when anything good happens, I have to like look askance at it. I have to be like, well, what's the real thing happening here? Because what you have is things like, all of the medical industries coming out and going, yeah, actually transgenderism's bad. It's like, yeah, but that's been obvious the whole time. So why are you saying it now? Why is this happening now? Or even, Keir Starmer or others. And it's just it's just like beyond absurd. I can't even wrap my mind around the fact that these people go from deliberately importing millions of people, and then they'll give a speech where they're like, this is unsustainable. We've got a problem here. We've got to stop the dinghies. And it's like, yeah, we know. You threw people in jail for saying that. Why are you saying it now? What's happening here? And part of me is just like, are they running the algorithms? Are they running the simulations, and they're determining like it's just too late now? Like in Europe, the people are, mainstream establishment politicians are coming out and saying there's too much immigration. Is that just because it's like, okay, we're past the point of no return? Okay, they've run the numbers, and it's like Europe is just on the track to collapsing and becoming a caliphate, and they don't even have to like try anymore. The ball is rolling. It's going now. The demographic, spillover point has occurred, and now they can pretend like they're against it or something. I'm trying to wrap my mind around why so many people who have been spreading lies for decades are suddenly realizing the truth out of nowhere. Part of me thinks like, okay, Israel's just sort of run the algorithm. They've run the AI simulation, and they're like, yeah, we won in Gaza now. So now we can, now all of our proxies and Western governments can pretend to be against us now because it's already done. It's over. We've won. Now it's just a matter of sort of cleaning up the pieces. And so, yeah, you guys can come out against us now. Now you guys can, act like you're standing up against us and we'll be the bad guys. And you can act like you're morally superior. Like, is this all just a game? Is it all just because it's like once a scheme achieves its objective, then they give permission to people to tell the truth again because it's just too late at that point? I don't know. I don't know why, but I have a difficult time believing that the same people that defended Israel's actions over the last year and a half are suddenly outraged and shocked that they're starving people in Gaza. This just doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense to me. Let's go now to let's go to two more videos about Israel, I think. We'll go to 14 and 15. This is Anthony Aguilar, and he was a Green Beret who was actually stationed in Gaza and was assisting the IDF and was, of course, outraged and horrified at what he saw there. Here is a firsthand account of how the IDF is treating the Palestinian children that they're starving. Let's go to clip 14 now.
And he put down the little food he has. You notice he doesn't have a box. He doesn't have a box of food. He has half of a bag of rice that he found on the ground, a broken bag, half a bag of lentils that he found on the ground, and he was thanking us. Thank you. This little boy from where he came from walked 12 kilometers to get there, just to get there. 12 kilometers. Look at this boy. And when he got there, he thanked us for the remnants and the small crumbs that he got. And he sets them down on the ground because I was kneeling at this point, and he sets his food down and he places his hands on my face, on the side of my face, on my cheeks, these frail, skeleton, emaciated hands, dirty. And he puts them on my face and he kissed me. He kissed me and he said, thank you, in English. Thank you. And he collected his items and he walked back to the group. And then he was shot at with pepper spray and tear gas and stun grenades and bullets shot at his feet and in the air. And he runs away scared. And the IDF were shooting at the crowd. So they're shooting to control the population that's along the Marag corridor. And as they're doing that, they're shooting into this crowd. And Palestinian civilians, human beings, are dropping to the ground, getting shot. And Amir was one of them. Amir walked 12 kilometers to get food, got nothing but scraps, thanked us for it, and died. I served in the Army for 25 years. I've been shot 3 times in combat. I'm pretty tough. This gets me every time because, to what you're saying, the dehumanization. And what I want to say to the American people and to the people of Israel, I've been there. I have touched them. I have talked to them. The civilians in Gaza that are getting the food, they are starving. They are not animals. They are human beings. And they're being treated like animals. We treat these civilians in Gaza worse, with less dignity than we treated the ISIS fighters that surrendered in Baghouz Faghani in Syria in 2018. This young boy, this is on May 28th on secure distribution site number 2. The aid had been distributed. A lot of people had left. You see behind, there's a crowd of people still with their boxes, kind of getting ready to leave. And this little boy, his name is Amir, and he was standing, he was with the crowd, but he walks over, and you see that first picture on the top right. He kind of walks over to me, and he puts out his hand. And at first I thought like that he wanted more food or something, and I felt bad because I didn't have anything. But I was like, oh, I have nothing. And he puts out his hand, and so I beckoned him to come to me. I said, come here. And he reaches out and he holds my hand and he kisses my hand. He kisses me, he kisses my hand, and he says, Shukran. You can see in this picture that this little boy is not wearing shoes. His clothes are falling off of him because he's so skinny. I put my hand on his left shoulder, and I looked at him, and he's looking at me. We're looking at each other in the eyes. And I say to him, people care. You're a human being, and people care about you. The world cares. That's not Hamas. That's not a Hamas fighter. And I looked at him and I said, the world cares.
Israel doesn't care. Israel doesn't care. And if that kid's allowed to grow up, would you blame him for wanting to join Hamas? I mean, my God, where are his parents? Where's the rest of his family? What did they think the outcome of this was going to be? It was going to be proud of Israel? And this is like kind of the most disturbing thing out of all of it. We just showed the video of the woman talking about the IDF whistleblower saying 1,000 trucks of aid had been buried and destroyed rather than delivered to the Palestinians. And the woman's like, the real consequence of this is Israel's reputation is being hurt. It's like, you aren't even pretending to care. You really don't even pretend that you actually care about the humanitarian crisis. It's literally just, it's reputationally bad for Israel, and that's why you're against what's happening. And just like Smotrich said, it's immoral to starve 2 million Gazans, but no one in the world would let us. It's not actually a rejection of the idea of starving children. It's they just don't think they could get away with it. And if they thought they could get away with it, they would have done this a long time ago. So this is finally, getting to the point of outrage. But don't worry, folks. The Israelis have it under control. Not that they're going to stop. I mean, they're not going to stop, and they're probably only going to get worse. In fact, that's what they're announcing. As you have Lindsey Graham saying, there's going to be a change in tactics by the Israeli military in Gaza. Yeah, they might nuke it or they might just take it over. Regardless, they're going to deliver 1 million Muslims to America. And maybe I wasn't even going to go to this video, but clip number 18 is the foreign minister, I think, of Israel, basically blaming the Muslims in Europe for why Europe is turning against Israel now. We'll go to that clip. I wasn't going to go to it, but let's go to clip number 18 here. This is Israel saying they will not sacrifice their existence just to appease Europe. Let's watch.
We are aware of the fact that there are countries in Europe today with a huge Muslim populations. Sometimes it affects the policies of their governments. But this cannot and will not lead Israel to commit suicide. We won't allow a jihadist terror state in the heart of our ancient homeland. It ain't gonna happen. We won't allow a Hamas terror state to form just a few kilometers away from our population centers. Israel will not be the Czechoslovakia of the 21st century. We won't sacrifice our own existence for the sake of the appeasement countries. We won't give up our basic interest for the sake of internal politics in certain countries that lost control over their own streets. But still they are arrogantly presume to decide for what's good for our security.
They're going to have the arrogance to say what's good for our... No, we just want you to stop killing babies, you freaks. What is wrong with these people, man? It really is something else. And, of course, it's the height of irony, blaming the Muslim immigration to Europe. Why are there so many Muslims in Europe, Israel? What's that all about? Is there some sort of decade-long civil war in Syria that you started that drove all of the Muslims into Europe? Was it the Israeli immigration services that are running boats from Libya to Italy back and forth on a daily basis? Have I not seen videos of Israeli volunteers welcoming dinghies full of migrants on the shores of Greek beaches? And are you not at this very moment making plans to transport 2 million Muslims from Gaza into Europe? So it's just it's just insane. It just is completely insane. And of course, they expect Europe to kill itself for the sake of Israel. Just don't you dare suggest it be the other way around. So again, they're panicking because they're losing the information war, they're losing the PR war, and they cannot survive without the assistance and being propped up entirely by the entire Western political sphere. Let's go to clip number 20 here, as this is, the source of all of their panic. Let's watch.
Benjamin Netanyahu, if you look at polling in the United States, he is lost in the court of public opinion. I want you to take a look here at his net favorable rating. It is the lowest on record, according to Gallup, and they have records going all the way back since the 1990s. What are we talking about here? Well, in April of 2019, before, obviously, Israel in Gaza and the latest war that's been going on for a long time, Benjamin Netanyahu was on the positive side at plus 13 points. Look at where he is today, minus 23 points. My goodness gracious. You look at those under the age of 35, his net favorable rating at this point, get this, 53 points underwater. My God. And this, of course, has everything to do with Israel's actions in Gaza. The American people at this particular point not exactly liking what they're seeing, and they believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is in large part responsible.
So to that point, how do Americans feel about Israel's actions in Gaza right now?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this. I mean, net approval of Israel's military acts in Gaza. You go back to November of 2023, it was on the positive side of the ledger, plus 5 points. I bet if you even go back a little bit further, it'd be a little bit higher, but Gallup only measured in November of 2023 at plus 5 points. Look at here where we are in July of 2025. Way down there at minus 28 points. Among those under the age of 35, get this, a negative 73-point net approval rating. This is all being led. All the negative opinions towards Israel and their acts in Gaza are being led by the younger folks in the electorate. Negative 73 points on the net approval rating. You rarely ever see numbers that low, and that is charging up this number, 28 points underwater. The net approval rating of Israel's military acts in Gaza. The American people do not like what they're seeing and increasingly dislike what they're seeing.
That is really a shift. And this is leading to a number of other feelings when it comes to Israel in general. As we look at that, and also questions about Palestinians and whether to recognize the state of Palestine, that's back in the news because of Emmanuel Macron. Where do we stand on some of those questions?
Yeah, so, for the longest period of time, Americans have sympathized more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. That's still the case, but it's only by plus 5. You go back to May of 2024, it was plus 17. Right after October 7th, look at this, it was plus 48. In 2017, it was plus 39 points. That is a dramatic drop. That is, what is that, a 43-point drop since the aftermath of October 7th. And again, under the age of 50, you look at those younger voters, it was plus 38 Israelis back all the way back in 2017. You look now, it is plus 19 Palestinians. There has simply put been a complete change of opinion on this topic, and it has been at least driven in large part by how Americans view the military actions of Israel in Gaza.
It was fascinating to see those numbers, Harry. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just 23% of Americans say Gaza military actions in Gaza, or Israel military actions in Gaza, are fully justified, CNN poll finds. So they're losing the information war, so they're really pulling out all the stops. That means that and I talked about this on American Journal, they're doing this thing where they are inviting hundreds of content creators to Israel, right-wing content creators, but they're all under 30 because they understand they've got to win back over the young people. And the young people don't exactly love genocide, so they have to trick them. So now they have to trick them even harder. Yeah, and that's why, Netanyahu's going on the Full Send podcast with his scripted questions to lie to them. I mean, it's just insane. And we'll finish here on Israel in particular, and here's just two more stories about just how awful they are. Israel settlers terrorized Christian villages of Tebet in the West Bank, setting vehicles ablaze, hurling stones at homes, and writing threatening graffiti. Christians have experienced daily aggression from Jewish settlers, while Israel's government has done nothing to stop the violence. In fact, they support it, and American taxpayers are responsible for paying for this. Tonight, Israel settler families are awaiting at the Allenby Crossing, West Bank, to block humanitarian aid trucks intended for Gaza. At the same time, a bus with settlers entered the village of Al-Warta, West Bank, with the aim to steal Palestinian homes. So they really got all their bases covered here. And, of course, the Israeli government doing absolutely nothing to stop these settlers' activities. But the reason it's important to harp on this, again, my thing is not being anti-Israel. I'm pro-America. And Israel is sort of at the heart of all of these conflicts that we've been talking about for the recent past. Obviously, it's at the heart of the Epstein saga, with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein being Mossad agents and running a honeypot operation, which, at least is in part why America is so beholden to Israel, because our politicians are pretty much all complete pedophiles, or at least being blackmailed by the pedophiles in some way. As well as, any other topic you want to get into, whether it's the violence breaking out from the pro-Palestinian side, killing people, or the censorship that's going on, and we'll get very into that here in just a second. But we'll go to a final clip here, clip number 8. Most important question you can ever learn to ask is who benefits, and this is in line with, AIPAC dropping Randy Fine, big fat Randy Fine, for saying that he wanted Gazans to starve. But here's a little insight into AIPAC. Clip number 8. I believe this is from Glenn Beck's show. Let's watch.
I've actually studied AIPAC, and it's like, well, everyone in Congress and the Senate, they're hijacked and they're under the control of AIPAC because they have the money. It's true, but if you look at AIPAC's money, they get it from the American Israeli Education Fund. And if you look at who's putting money into that, it's Raytheon, it's Boeing, it's military-industrial complex. This is what Eisenhower warned us for. He didn't warn us for the Zionist Israeli Jew industrial complex. He warned us for the military-industrial complex. So if you got war somewhere, look at who really benefits from that.
Yeah. It's just a big coincidence that the military-industrial complex is peopled entirely by hardcore Zionist Jews. That's not what we should be focusing on. But he's got a point there. And, it's not just, getting money from Raytheon. And of course, you get how this works, right? The American taxpayers pay for weapons that are given to Israel. Then the money that Raytheon makes then goes into the ADL and AIPAC, who then advocate for more weapons to be sent to Israel, and that gives them more money. So it's a cycle that they're operating, that they're making a ton of money on. But it's not just that. It's, all the other NGOs that get government money that then get poured into lobbying efforts to further restrict or constrict or manipulate public opinion and government policy that way. So it's a giant, enclosed ecosystem that they have, robbing the American people for the benefit of Israel. And AIPAC is a key component in that. But so are, so many of these other programs or operations or organizations. We'll be back on the other side to talk about the way censorship is the newest weapon in the information war that Israel is really maximizing their use of. They're going nuclear. Let me remind you that we're supported entirely by thealexjonesstore.com, ex-Israeli military associate to censor anti-Zionist content. So, of course, we know, and this is another, example of Israeli control of America and just how deep it is. You have to understand that Israel controls our Congress more than the president. Just understand that if there's anything Republicans want, you're going to have the entire Democratic Party doing everything they can to stop it, even or perhaps especially when it's something that would be beneficial to the American people. Democrats are never going to go for it, even if it's just not to give Republicans a win, right? But if Israel wants something, everybody's on board. Everybody on both sides of the aisle gets instruction from their AIPAC handler, and they all vote in the same way. So when it came to TikTok, this is like not even a speculative thing. Like you can actually point to it and go, hey, during Trump's first administration, he tried to get TikTok banned, and nobody would go for it, and the Democrats stopped it, and it just didn't go anywhere, sort of died on the vine. But he wanted to get rid of TikTok or, somehow take ownership of TikTok. In his first administration, didn't happen, couldn't happen. It was ridiculous, free speech, et cetera, et cetera. Then Israel wants TikTok banned, and in like 2 weeks, it's banned. The law is passed, and TikTok is, facing the guillotine for all intents and purposes. So obviously, this is part of that, right? This is part of Israel got the American Congress to vote to censor TikTok because of anti-Semitism. And again, it's one of these things, we've been talking about it on American Journal. They call it Trump's Law. Trump's law is that anything Trump does is for Israel, good or bad. You can always relay it back to Israel. And they're pretty blatant about this. They always have just like the bare minimum, like disguise to cover up what they're doing. But then they always admit it at the end of the day, right? UNESCO was the example I was just using, where if you read the official, statement, it's like, well, UNESCO was doing some shady stuff with the communist Chinese, and UNESCO is woke, and we don't like wokeness, and UNESCO did something else, and maybe they'll mention it, and also Gaza, it's full of anti-Semites. But it's all these other reasons, just like TikTok, or just like the way they're going after the president of Harvard and claimed it was about DEI or plagiarism. Like it's just not. And in all of these cases, you eventually get the person like the spokesperson for Trump the other day was like, oh, UNESCO? Yeah, it's because they're anti-Semites. It's because, to help Israel. We got rid of them. So it's like anything that happens is because of Israel. Now, TikTok, they're like, oh, it's Chinese owned, it's privacy. And then at the end of the day, they're like, well, no, it's because it's not controlled. It's because they don't have a anti-Semitism monitor there, making sure everything comports to the lies of Israel. And so obviously, I can only imagine that this was part of the negotiations where they said, look, TikTok, we're going to destroy you because of all the hate speech that you're spreading, all the anti-Semitism. So in order to avoid being destroyed, you have to have an IDF member there to censor content. TikTok recently hired a new hate speech manager with longstanding ties to the Jewish community, the company confirmed to Jewish Insider. As the social media platform faces growing pressure to confront a sharp rise in anti-Semitic content, the streaming platform enlisted Erica Mindell, a former State Department contractor who worked for Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, the Biden administration's special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, to join TikTok's global public policy and government affairs team. So, on one hand, this does everything to confirm the statements of the anti-Semites, right? That Israel or the Jews control, messaging and they have this worldwide censorship regime. This contributes to that. But obviously, they've run the equation and decided, well, being able to censor people is worth confirming the claims of the anti-Semites because obviously, again, you've got the American Jewish Committee working with the ADL to force TikTok to establish this new role specifically focused on stopping anti-Semitism. And this, of course, had to be forced on TikTok because they didn't do it willingly. The other social media companies very willing to do this and didn't need to have their arm twisted whatsoever. We can go first to clip number 10 here. This is ex-IDF instructor Erica Mindell, previously served as assistant director of program development at the American Jewish Committee. According to a LinkedIn profile, worked briefly as the special envoy's office in the second Trump administration before she was hired by TikTok, the company told Jewish Insider. Here's Erica Mindell in her profile of the Faces of American Jewry. Let's watch. Faces of American Jewry from the American Jewish Congress, Virtual Global Forum 2021.
My name is Erica Mindell, and I work for Project Interchange at American Jewish Committee. I grew up in a traditional conservative household. I went to a traditional Jewish day school, a traditional conservative summer camp, and like many other American Jews, I took a gap year before college and spent 10 months living in Israel, where I participated in a program that was centered around exploring and understanding Jewry worldwide. My sophomore year at the University of Michigan, a BDS resolution was presented to the student government. Like many other committed American Jews I knew on campus, I decided to get involved in combating it. I committed myself wholeheartedly to engaging with student leaders on the topic of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Our conversations quickly became a microcosm of a century-long conflict happening on the other side of the world. For the first time, I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, encountering and internalizing new perspectives and forcing myself to consider a variety of viewpoints and narratives. In the summer of 2014, after my sophomore year, like many of my friends, I had a summer internship, a Goldman Fellowship at AJC. I came to work each morning as Israel engaged in one of the larger military operations of my lifetime, Tzuk Eitan, Operation Protective Edge. That summer, I realized how impactful my Jewish upbringing and education was. I simultaneously realized how passionate my own Zionist identity had become. I knew the well-being of Jews worldwide and the security of Israel would be issues of lifelong importance to me. I grew up in a tradition